Thanks for joining us today. My name is Christina Rezzi, and I'm Director Continuing Education at Advocis. I'd like to introduce you to our two panelists today. We have Dean Delpeach, our consultant at Advocis, through his organization's Strategy, helps companies design strategic frameworks focused on diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity. Dean is also a professor and program lead of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Workplace program at George Brown College and possesses a master's in Human Resources Management from York University and completed a certificate program in Leadership and Inclusion at Centennial College. We also have Ryan Chin. Ryan Chin worked for more than 20 years as a relationship builder in the not-for-profit sector and has spent the last 5 years in the financial services industry. Ryan now combines sound business practices and infectious energy to improve lives in his role as a certified financial planner and chartered life underwriter. Ryan's passion in life focuses on enabling independence, not just for himself, but for others. His relentless determination and unrelenting resolve drove him to compete nationally and at the Olympic level, ultimately placing him 5th in the world on the Paralympic stage in the '92 Barcelona Games. His commitment to lifelong learning fueled his quest to achieve his MBA in 2 years while working full-time. Most recently, he has achieved both his Certified Financial Planning designation and his Chartered Life Underwriter designation, becoming the first blind person to do this in North America. His specialties are wealth management and estate planning. Ryan continues to challenge himself. In 2022, he incorporated his practice as an advisor with Sun Life Financial and is now the CEO of a booming practice with a staff of 2. Thank you to Dean and Ryan for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here this morning speaking with Ryan Chin, who is an advisor from Sun Life, to have conversations really around inclusive behaviors and how we can be more inclusive in the financial advisory space. And I think it's absolutely amazing for us to sit here and have conversations like this, particularly at this time. And Ryan, so excited to meet you. Again, for the audience, my name is Dean Delpeach. I am a diversity and inclusion consultant here with Advocis and really excited about the opportunity to share this time. Ryan, great to see you.
Thank you so much, Dean.
Ryan, would love for the audience to get to know you like I've gotten to know you. I mean, we've had several calls now and we've had the chance to really catch up. But, our broader audience, doesn't know the value you bring to the industry. And I really want you to tell our audience a little bit about, yourself and, what it was like getting into the financial services industry for you.
Yeah, well, Dean, I'll tell you something. Coming into, prepping for this this presentation and just sort of working through the motions, really brought back some memories and dredged up some emotions. For as you know, Dean, I'm vision impaired. I'm someone with sight loss. At an early age, I was diagnosed with something called macular degeneration, more specifically Stargardt's. Stargardt's is a juvenile form of macular degeneration, whereby your vision becomes very, I'll say, blurred as the vision progresses. Your macular is a part of the eye that sits at the back of the eye, and it actually it takes the light in, but it also reflects the light out, giving you sort of that crystal clear vision. So, I like to explain it and say, it's kind of like holding a dinner plate in front of your face. You can't quite see around that dinner plate. And as your vision progressively gets a little bit worse, the dinner plate gets closer, ultimately rendering you someone with good severe vision loss. So I mean, diagnosed pretty early in life, I understood, hey, we all got to deal with hurdles. We've all got things to deal with. I can either dig myself into this vision loss and feel sorry for myself and get upset about it, or I could adjust my stride, and take on these hurdles head on. Well, in about 2013, I graduated with an MBA, and right around that time, I was restructured from a position that I had with another agency, and been working there for about 20 years. So here I am, newly minted MBA, and I'm restructured. I kind of thought maybe I got a little too smart for that organization, but
You probably
anyways, I'll
did.
save that for another webcast. But here I am. I've got to get a job, right? Here we are, and so I started leaning on a lot of my contacts and getting these interviews. And many people would give me an interview, and I'd come in and have these great conversations with folks. And ultimately, they kept saying, "Wow, you're an inspiration. Wow, you're so smart. And wow, it's so amazing what you can do." But yet no one wanted to give me a job.
Mm.
I did get that call from Sun Life back a few years back, and came in, and I thought to myself, okay, here we go again, another round the carousel, and see what happens. So I put on my new suit and went into the office. I had my white cane in front of me because it's important to know where I'm going and be safe about it. As I walked in, it would have been great to see the look on the hiring manager's face at the time, because here's this prospect that he thought he was bringing in, and whoa, lo and behold, this guy can't see. True professional he was. He brought me right into the office. He didn't skip a beat. Truly, brought me right in, sat me down, and we started chatting. We warmed up pretty quickly, and it became less about the fact that I was vision impaired and more about what I could provide to the role. About halfway through the meeting, he got up and went and got the district director at the time, and brought him into the office, and we're all chatting about me coming on board and getting involved with Sun Life. And it became quite a lively conversation, more so like, hey, here's a young intelligent guy who wants to manage his future, and less about the fact that I had this disability or this visual impairment.
Mhm.
The hiring manager said, look, what we're going to do for you is, if you can go and write your LLQP and pass that, we're going to get you onboarded into our system. Well, challenge laid is a challenge accepted, and I took
Mm.
that on and decided that I would do it. I did the LLQP in about 3 months. Graduated, I passed the exam, no problem, and it came time to sit down with the sort of I'll say compliance team on how they would be able to onboard a blind person, because this is something brand new to the finance industry. And Dean, you may or may not know, the finance industry, we're very paper heavy. We're still a little bit antiquated. We're doing faxes. We've got a lot of printed paper, and folks couldn't quite wrap their head around, how's this fellow going to be able to manage his practice. I kind of walked away a little bit from that meeting feeling like a second-class citizen, in
Mm.
that some of the legal team didn't truly understand what I could bring to the profession. Fortunately, I had a good, strong management team behind me, and they said, "Hey, look, this fellow was able to meet the obligation of getting his LLQP. It's now our turn to step up to the plate."
Mhm.
Well, they did it. We got onboarded. Here I am today, 5 years later. I'm a CLU. I'm a CFP. Yeah, I've got that MBA on the side there.
Mm.
Fairly thriving practice. I've incorporated my practice at Paradox Financial Solutions, and I have two service associates. So, lo and behold, I was able to master this challenge, take it on full bore, and you know what? Sight has never gotten in my way.
Hey, Ryan, like that was a fantastic story and introduction to who you are, and and listening to it, I kind of got chills. Like, it's such an exciting journey from where you've come from, but more importantly, being welcomed into an organization and into an industry and a community. I think it's absolutely amazing. I'm really curious, because a lot of times when we talk about diversity, we talk about identity. And I would love to know, like, based on, the story, your past experience, how do you personally, self-identify, and through kind of your self-identification, I'd love to understand about resistance and challenges you have with prospective clients once they see you, they know that you are legally blind. Could you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, for sure, Dean. You know what? When I was younger, I had a lot more vision. As I mentioned, I have progressive vision loss. Today, my vision is quite substantially hindered. Um, and back when as I was growing up, I'll be honest, I didn't want to tell a lot of people I was vision impaired. I could see a fair bit. I wasn't good enough to see to drive, but I could see enough that I could navigate freely, independently, without a white cane, and not, trip and stumble too many times. But and one thing, as I was growing up, I wouldn't use a white cane because I could actually see other folks looking at me, and I
Mm,
always felt, why are they looking at me with such pity? I don't have a problem. I just can't see, and that really turned me off of wanting to have that cane, out there in front of me. Well, I'll tell you, I'm a little older now, a little more mature, and my sight is progressed to such a state that I don't have a choice. I've got to use the cane. It is a safety device for me, and it allows me to get from point A to B independently. And I don't care. I don't care what they think. I don't care what people are looking at or how they look at me. I know for myself personally, I've overcome so many challenges. I've done so many things in life. I've got a suit of armor on that, it's pretty ironclad. Um, as it relates to my clients, I can't say enough about my clients. I I put it out there right up front, and I let each and every one know I'm vision impaired, that I have service associates who work and assist me. And I always say they do all the heavy lifting, the paperwork and the pyrotechnics, because I want my clients to know they're getting me and my brain, and we'll take care of the
mhm.
paperwork absolutely. And I'll be honest, I've never had one person say that they wanted to change advisors. Everyone has always said, hey, that's not a problem. And we've just moved on. So, being upfront, being clear, being honest with each and every one of my clients has just been just amazing.
Wow. Ryan, I've got to ask this, and maybe some of the audience members are wondering, but even now, you being visually impaired, how are you doing this interview in that sense of, really, being on cue and understanding what you're doing? Just tell us, share that, please.
Yeah, sure, Dean. You know what, Dean? So as you can see, I'm wearing a headset here, and it's not only because I want to hear your lovely voice, but more specifically, I'm using a screen reader in the background. So
Mm,
as I'm speaking, as you're speaking, I have a text to speech screen reader, basically rolling out my scripted notes that I feverishly typed last night and early into the wee hours of this morning. So it's prompting me. So I'm listening to my computer talk to me as I'm listening to you talk to me. And hey, it's all seems to be working. But my phone talks to me, my computer talks to me, and everyone in my life talks to me. So it's just a very audible life that I live. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, listen, let's talk a little bit about your practice, because I think that's really important. We've got, an audience of financial advisors who are, intrigued now because of your story. And let's talk about, like, your practice, like, from the standpoint of, if you want to talk more about, your portfolio, how many clients you have, like, do you focus on clients with disabilities because you have one, or do you have a target market, or, when you think about your portfolio, talk to us about that.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you all about it. So, I mean, you know, I absolutely have a number of clients with a disability who are part of my portfolio, and but like any other CFP, our job is to target those high net worth clients who are fully engaged in the planning conversation, those folks who want to build, grow wealth, and have a solid plan in place to execute their wishes, and then transfer that wealth to their generations beyond. And that's where my focus is. Of course, I did say, yeah, I do have a large client block of folks who with a disability. And I'll tell you, it's not because I target that community by any means, but it's because my practice is inclusive, and that
Mm,
I look for all clients in a manner trying to help them and uncover their situations. And that is why my practice is um, has many clients, clients with disability and not disability. It's because it's an inclusive practice, and having awareness and being open to ask questions and uncover opportunity. That's the focus. That's what it's all.
got it.
And Dean, we're chatting a lot about me, and I appreciate that. But what I really, one of the things I really want to understand is, you know, diversity and inclusion. There's some great buzzwords. I mean, we know that today, it doesn't matter where you go or what organization you talk to, you're hearing these terms, diversity and inclusion. Um, we know that the diversity part of that is generally fairly recognizable when we think about gender or multiculturalism. So there's that aspect. Broadly speaking, how do you think organizations are doing when we consider inclusion?
Yeah, I think, Ryan, that's a fantastic question. Because just to kind of requote a little bit of what you said, when organizations and even just society, when we're thinking about, oh, we need to be more diverse, I mean, we're really thinking about kind of the visual diversity that we see. And you mentioned that, right? Like gender, or it could be race, ethnicity, it could be disability, it could be anything, to kind of speak to the fact that we um do embrace diversity. But embracing diversity is only one part of the equation, and making sure that people feel like I am a part of an organization that allows me to do my best work and allows me to be who I am, bring my whole authentic self to work, and perform just like anyone else, is really the topic of inclusion. Companies hire us, if we think about it logically, to add value to their organizations at the end of the day. So what we all need is to ensure we have the tools, the accommodations, and everything that's appropriate to do our best work. So what I'm seeing, Ryan, as of lately, is companies are now starting to say, how can we support our employees better? Now, you know industries are, I mean, there's so many industries and there's so many different things happening in different industries, but when we talk about more so in the financial industry, the one push I am seeing is there's been quite a bit of studies that have been done. I recently read one from an organization called Think Advisor, which was talking about the diversity and the inclusion of the financial advising industry, and saying, we're starting to see work happen, but there's a lot more to do. So maybe a couple thoughts that I have for companies is, number one, create a strategy, right, around how you can make your organization more inclusive? Does that mean that you want to add some programs, maybe an employment resource group or an affinity group? Or do we want to start to add some training, some education so people could become more aware of what it means to be inclusive? Do we need to begin to offer greater accommodations and support and flexibility, right, for employees? Because as we learned through the pandemic, we don't need to be in an office to work. We could be anywhere in the world. So start to begin to think about some of that. And then the second thing I would add to that is start to measure inclusion, right? You need to hear from your employees to understand if your organization is more inclusive. And so I always encourage organizations to do what I call an intersectional analysis. And so let me explain that real quick. What we do is we do surveys that ask for demographic information. Obviously, that's optional if people want to fill that out. So understanding gender in your organization, or race or disability or mental health, etc. And then asking questions on that exact same survey or census around people's feelings. Do you feel like you belong in the organization? Do you feel like you can do your work without any hindrances? Do you feel like our workplace is a flexible environment that gives you balance for your life? And then what we do is we take that data and we measure it, right, to understand how our employees are feeling. And a lot of times with the demographic data coupled with the inclusion questions, as I call them, we do an analysis to understand different groups. So imagine, right, you could have high scores with white individuals in the workplace who say they feel included, but if you delve down into that data, you might discover that, hey, people who are Black with a disability, or people who are white with a disability, or just people who have disabilities in general, or people who may be from the LGBTQ community might score lower. So how do we now create programs that support them to create greater inclusion? Because that leads to greater retention. So that's what you're starting to see happening right now, Ryan, a shift of companies saying, how can we strategize? How can we do better around that conversation?
Well, I guess that leads me to a quick follow-up question. As you're working with these business leaders, as you're out there, presenting your craft, when would you bring up this topic uh, of, including a diversity inclusion strategy to help that company strengthen its profile?
Yeah, that's a great question. The truth is, Ryan, when companies call me, that's probably
They've already
because
made their
they're already
decision.
now, they're thinking it, they're making a decision, they're starting to really put dollars behind it, because they really feel like it's important, and that is the truth. But at the same token, I've spoken to companies that they're curious, right, and they want to know more. And what I would say, especially to those clients who are curious because they really just want to learn more, is just do your research and talk to your employees. Ask your employees about their experiences at work. How are they feeling? I even encourage employees to do just an employment engagement survey, right? Where you can understand how engaged your employees are. And a lot of those surveys, or the companies that issue these surveys, they have benchmarks to tell you, if you're lower than this, it's, time to watch out, etc. But I think that is important. And particularly in our industry, if there's a firm like a Sun Life or Candle Life, or if there's even individual practices that have employees, what doesn't matter how big or small, I think it's really the employees that tell us about, drive this conversation and tell us how they're feeling. And if we have employees in our organization that don't feel like they can do their best work, then we're missing out on a performance gap, which I think is really important, because we want our employees and those who we work with to be most productive, because that's going to lead to a greater client experience, right? And a greater client experience, as leads to referrals, and referrals leads to a bigger practice, right? So this is all it's really just a snowball effect when we really think about it. And I encourage people, if they're starting to be curious and starting to think about it, to really go down the path of doing the research they need. And if they need any support, they can always call consultants like myself in. Kind of with that said, Ryan, and I kind of appreciate, those questions. I'm kind of, really, really curious about just thinking about how the financial industry professionals can really build up their practice. We're talking about inclusion, and you've got a practice, you're targeting clients, you've got staff you work with. In your opinion, kind of how can financial industry professionals really kind of pivot their practice to build a more inclusive environment for everybody, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Dean. Let's think about this. And I read this stat in Wealth Professional. 1 in 8 families have someone with a disability, and not many of those families actually have RDSP. That's pretty incredible. And I mean, so if you think of any advisor who's watching this webcast today, I mean, in every 8 clients, there's one person with an opportunity. And really, in order to do that, you got to ask questions. I mean, every client comes to us with different backgrounds, different lived experiences, and it's not for us to impose our own bias or assumptions onto them, but it's for us to ask questions and understand the problem. Try to understand the problem, because that's our job. Our job as advisors is to talk to clients and truly understand what is it that they're asking, so that we can provide a good, competent recommendation that's going to provide the solution for them. It's when we think about even just looking at our practice and how can we tailor our practice to become more inclusive. So not even more on the client generation side, but more on the practice side of things. If we start with our intake form and we generalize that form and we start to ask very targeted questions, and if everyone is filling out the same questions, then it's bringing that practice more into the inclusive realm. For example, asking questions like gender at birth, or asking, preferred pronoun, even something like, how do you prefer to receive your communications? Do you like written communications? Do you like your documents PDF'd? Everyone learns differently, and everyone absorbs information differently, and it's important that we're really trying to target those. Questions like, are there any special instructions that we should be aware of, or are there any client expectations that you have that my team, my office can provide to you to make this service experience better? We as advisors, as financial planners, we need to be cognizant that everyone walking in the door is an individual, and no matter what, the reason they're there is because they want your help. And so it's our job to make it easy to provide that help.
Yeah, totally get that.
So, Dean, philosophically speaking, are there benefits to, what do you think? Do you think there are benefits to financial professionals who would build in an inclusive practice? Like, do you think, is there something that says, hey, if you do this, you're going to be successful? Or, is it just a nice to do?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? Like the reality, and I kind of mentioned it, alludes to it a little bit, but I'll expand on it a little bit more, is, we are in business to create value, right? We're in business for our own, personal success, but at the same time, we're in business to create value for clients, right? In this practice, particularly as in the financial advising industry, we want every Canadian, right, to be exposed to financial literacy, financial support, financial wealth. That's just the reality. And in order to really, really serve our clients, better, we need to make sure our staff internally feel supported and feel valued.
Yeah, I
And
hear that. And so I'm just gonna jump on that one
oh,
for a
please.
second. You talked about the financial professionals and our staff. You know, if we're building in to our HR practices, an inclusive hiring practice, um, are there resources out there that can help an advisor navigate that water a little bit? So, whether they're, um, and you mentioned this, a few moments ago, just, really understanding who your staff are and what their preferences are and what motivates them. But, if we're tailoring our practice, uh, and making it very inclusive, hiring practices included, are there resources out there to help?
Yeah. Um, Outside of just ad hoc training, there's maybe three resources or organizations that create resources that I'd recommend. First, Gartner, second, Catalyst, and third, Corn Ferry. They've done extensive work on measuring as well as looking at how to create more inclusive practices for all employees. And so those are three organizations that I think can be resourceful. But if I can allude to one thing, Ryan, I think that every hiring manager shouldn't just go through what I call unconscious bias or implicit bias training, but should go through some form of inclusive leadership training to help support them. And the reason why I say that is I allude to your own story. If those hiring managers didn't have some type of acumen around being inclusive, then they would have had a nice conversation with you, Ryan, and then after said, hey, we'll call you if we need you, right? But they recognized immediately that, hey, this individual can bring value to our organization, to our clients. Let's let's make sure he can get the qualifications he needs, and let's support him. And here you are 5 years later, right? And so they kind of gave you that foot in, but I think that comes through acumen of inclusion. And so I think all hiring managers need to go through that. And those are three organizations with resources that can definitely support outside of just other ad hoc resources.
Yeah.
And kind of on that, Ryan, just to almost kind of flip it back to you, if I can, kind of like volley it. We're talking anecdotally about organizations, the industry, etc. But you know, I'm sure some advisors who are listening to this right now are wondering, okay, well, Ryan, what about your staff? What about the people that you work with? Do they feel valued? I'm kind of curious, you've got employees who will work with you. How do you support them, in terms of being more inclusive? And did you have to make any changes, any adaptations to your own practice?
So, I mean, I gotta say, building this practice, it has been nothing but changes and adaptations. Coming into the industry, one of the uh, sort of mandatory elements was that I needed to hire an admin person. So, I mean, for the other advisors who are on the line here, and they truly understand walking into a 100% commission role, and then all of a sudden you've got to now guarantee someone else a base salary. That's a pretty daunting task, pretty frightening, if you ask me. So I had to do that. It was one of the conditions of my onboarding, and you know, uh, it was scary initially. You know, are my do I work with my staff in terms of inclusion? So yeah, absolutely. I talk about alternate thinking all the time. It's truly important when we have to think about other ways of providing the same doing the same activity, to make sure that the person who's receiving that activity is receiving it the way they want. I mean, not just for myself. I mean, of course, I've got my staff who need to read various documents to me, and you know, whether they're just giving me the verbal information, I can process it and then put it back to the client as to what the item is. But something as simple as, you know, if you're getting up from the chair, push it in, because, you know, I'm not going to see that chair sticking out as I walk by. Or, you know, making sure all of your water bottles have a top on it. Because when I turn around my desk and if I put my hand out, I may knock it over. So, I mean, little things that many of us, I would say we call them courtesies in the grand scheme of life, are actual practical realities when you're working with someone who's blind or partially sighted. And that's just me. And I mean, you know, so there's little things along the way that I try to encourage my staff to understand, and then to our clients who are blind or partially sighted, you know, I want my staff to know, hey, take the extra step, rather than just flip out a PDF that, you know, very visually you can read it very quickly. Extract the important points from that PDF. Let's lay it into a really accessible format so that, you know, the recipient doesn't have to try to filter through all of this text that isn't necessarily the detail they're looking for. Absolutely, you still need to provide the detail, but what they want is a very simplified snapshot of what it is that they need to know so they can move on with their day, just like any other person who has investments or insurance.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I'm kind of just moving from, you know, just talking about, you know, internally your inclusive, your practice being inclusive. I want to talk about the clients because I think it's really important that we speak kind of understanding more about the client base. You know, the client focus reforms, as we know, have really brought into focus kind of the understanding of know your client and really know your product. And so, you know, Ryan, can you talk to us really about the importance of how this relates to clients with disabilities in particular? Would love to learn more about that.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? Nothing that we're going to talk about in the next little while is going to be, you know, rocket science or earth shattering. And probably many of the advisors who are watching today have already implemented these processes into their practices. What I'm hoping is for any who haven't, and maybe this is a refresher for some, or maybe some new ideas for others, this segment, I think, will hopefully you know, shine a little bit of a spotlight or broaden some opportunity for folks who are watching today.
Okay. So, I mean, we know that Advocis members, you know, they must abide by the code of conduct, and QAFPs and CFPs must follow the F Canada standards of responsibility. So let's talk about some of those guidelines and, you know, and um, how, you know, really they can help financial advisors or planners when working with their clients. So starting first with like priority of client interest. You know, we talk about checking your assumptions and biases. Talk a little bit about that to us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's think about it. I mean, that person has made their way to your office to engage in financial uh, planning exchange or some style of financial, you know, exercise. They want your advice. And you know what? It's important, as you say, check your biases. It's important to speak to the client. There's nothing I hate more than when I'm with somebody, whether it's my partner, whether it's a friend, family member, and I go to transact business, whether it's make a purchase or you know, go to a restaurant and sit down, and the person who's providing that service is standing across from me and talking to the person beside me, asking them questions that they want answers from me about. Like that's the most insulting thing in the world. And I think the truth of the matter is we need to truly understand our client
Hmm.
and make sure that we're addressing them. This could be their first experience where they are, they're feeling confident to get in front of somebody and take charge of their finances. And for many folks with a disability, and I'm not saying all, but for many, their parents manage their finances for a good chunk of their life, and if they haven't had the opportunity to take charge of that themselves, then and this is that opportunity, you would truly make them feel like a lesser person by not giving them that respect.
What about integrity? I mean, like considering that universal accessibility is not limited, or is limited not because of persons with disabilities, but when we think about it, it's as a result of existing barriers in society. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you know what? It it's important to show some empathy. Let the client know that you're understanding what it is that they're saying, and that you're willing to help them find a solution. Um, you know, I, I think it's truly important that we listen to our clients and we listen to what they're saying, um, because that's the only way we're truly gonna know um, what they're looking for.
Yeah, talk to us about competence as well then.
Yeah, competence. You know what? This doesn't end at just the advisor knowing their product, and I mean, or hey, I know how to open an account. It doesn't end there.
Mhm. Right.
Competence is truly well rounded. This this you you've got to it's about the advisor's ability to truly attend to the client's need. Um, you got to never assume. You've got to ask questions. You've got to understand what it is that they're looking for. A lot of our practice, a lot of our practices and our service delivery involves, paper, clients signing papers, clients interpreting paperwork, and take a moment and ask, what's your preferred method of receiving this paper? Do you use a screen reader? Um, do you need us to read this to you? Or can you read it independently? You can't assume these things. These are very small things to someone who's fully sighted. But if you decide you're going to take charge and control that situation without receiving any input from the client, then you've just made them feel like that their opinion, they feel lesser of a person, because now you're treating them like everyone else has. So
Hmm.
I mean, the fact of the matter is we don't know what what's happening in front of us unless we ask.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Maybe one more, Ryan, just because I really want to round up the discussion on this. When we talk about professionalism, can you chat to us a little bit about that too?
Yeah, and I mean, if you take everything we've talked about so far and kind of consolidate it, you know, starting from the intake, whether it be the intake form, starting from even just uh, talking through your process to the client and being very descriptive about that. We all learn in different ways, and we know that. As I mentioned, I'm taking everything in audibly. You're probably reading off of a screen. I mean, we all access information differently, and if we talk through our process to our prospective clients, we explain to them what it is they can expect, what are we planning on doing for them, and then asking how we can make that service even more inclusive. And it's okay to say that word. I mean, these are curse words, right? Dean, how can I make it more inclusive for you so that you're able to do this independently? Is
Mhm.
that there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it.
And we can't shy away from our words, and shy away from our responsibilities. The other thing is summarize. When we're all said and done and we've gone through our process, we all say, oh, we're going to send you a written summary. It's okay. You're going to get that all in writing. Well, you know what? Take a moment, walk through the summary with the client. Make sure that they have their check boxes are checked as yours are, because this is a relationship. This is not a transaction, and we want to keep it at a relationship level so that that person knows that you're being attentive, you're aware, and you're respecting their needs.
Mm.
So, Dean, are there any other tips or thoughts that you can uh, you know, offer us that we can incorporate into our practice to add that element of diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, I think with a question like that, the answers have been sprinkled throughout this conversation, but I'll try to kind of summarize it and bring it into a whole. The first thing is, I would say, be intentional. If you're really serious about a practice that's going to be more diverse in terms of the individuals who you work with, including being more inclusive and even being more equitable in terms of everything that you do, it has to start with intentionality. Again, I take it from the people that hired you at Sun Life, Ryan. They saw you and they got intentional. They said, listen, we're not going to let this one go. We're going to encourage him to, do his examinations, and let's see if he has what it takes. So be intentional about hiring people from all walks of life, and bringing people from all different backgrounds into your organization, ensuring that they feel included. The second thing I would say is something that we said before, because this conversation, a lot of it, the reason why a lot of companies, deal with inequity is because of bias. So check your personal biases. Every individual, all of us, we all have them, right? Check, our personal stereotypes, how we look at groups, how we prejudice them, and even how it leads to discrimination in different cases. And then after that, I would say the third thing I would do is think about in your organization or your firm, just anything that could be a structural bias. And I give an example. Especially in our industry, a lot of times people walk into our offices and they see a woman in the front, and they think that's the receptionist right away. It doesn't mean it's the receptionist. That individual might be a very successful financial advisor, right? How do we structure our businesses so that everybody could be recognized, everybody could be appreciated? Think about who you're hiring into your organization, to ensure that you're hiring, not just diversely, but obviously the most qualified person, and think about, just holistically how you can make your organization more inclusive and equitable. And I think those are three ways that, of things that we can do. And then maybe the last thing I'll just incorporate, um, is just kind of something you said. You don't necessarily target clients with disabilities. You target all clients because you're willing to support everyone who has a need. Obviously, you have parameters and criteria around, wealth, etc., and status of that client. But as you said, it's not just, hey, because I have a disability, I target only people with disabilities. And I think it's the same way. Like, think about everyone you can support, and maybe you might meet someone who's completely different from you, but you never know where they can lead you in terms of how they can help you grow your portfolio and your practice. So really, really, I love the term you used, alternate thinking, which I think is so important in our industry. And as we're kind of really wrapping up, Ryan, I mean, first of all, I just want to say, like, I've been enlightened in this conversation, by the information you shared, by the stories. It's really, really broadened my perspective to really understand that our industry needs more people just like you, and it not even just the fact of your visual impairment, but just your mind and your mindset and how you approach things. And would love to know, like, do you have any final thoughts as we kind of wrap up on this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you hit a lot there with your comments, and I truly want to echo what you said about our physical setups and feeling point number two with regards to in our offices and our setups in our offices. Universal accessibility is a pretty broad spectrum term. And just because something works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone else. You know, think about the analogy of someone that, you're installing an elevator and you put the buttons lower down, but yet for someone who's in a wheelchair, but then, someone who's vision impaired now has to scooch down and get on their knees to read the numbers. You think you put Braille on because you think that that's going to help everyone. And, only, a smaller percentage of people read Braille. So like there's so many, there is not a one process fix all. And I think in terms of final comments and wrap-ups, we got to be flexible. We have to install that alternate thinking. We have to think about how we can personalize the experience for each person that comes through the door, no matter what. It doesn't matter if they have a disability or they don't have a disability, or it matters about that particular client. That's who we're here for, and that's why we're here. It's conversations like these that help uncover different bits of information, and I hope our viewers had a chance. Some may take a little nugget away and think, well, you know what, I might try that in my practice, or hey, I'm going to explore that as something I may want to do. And for others, they may say, hey, I now feel a little more validated. All this time and effort that I'm putting into my practice and being inclusive is working. I'm doing the right things, and everyone is to be commended for that. It's true. It's through conversations like this where we all share best practices, and because this is what's going to move the needle towards that universal inclusivity, and that's what it's about. We need to have that future goal. Just remember, a friend of mine uses this all the time, and they use this hashtag. So just remember, I am the customer in front of you. And, that's pretty powerful. It doesn't matter who the person is. That's the customer in front of you. So you need to treat them like a person.
Amazing. Ryan, couldn't sum it up better than that. Ryan, just curious, if a advisor is listening to this and they want to kind of reach out to you just to get more information from you or even celebrate your success, where can they reach out to you?
Hey, yeah, no problems. I mean, of course, I'm a Sun Life advisor. They can Google me at Ryan Bradley Chin. They can also reach me at ryan.chin@sunlife.com. Happy to connect, share any information, any tips, tricks, traumas. We're all advisors. We're all in this together. And you know what? It's important that we help each other out along the way. Certainly, I'm an Advocis member, proud Advocis member, and enjoy my participation here. And happy to help.
Ryan, love it. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. Really, really appreciate your time. Thanks again, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Dean.